Alright, you know what it is yet? Keep guessing, keep guessing. Obviously you've read the title to this video. Look at that. 1980 Yamaha XS1100. I think it's an SH or an SG, I don't remember now. But anyway, this was it's called the standard version. You might say road trip, but the standard version anyway, a little bit hard to find in the US. So, XS11, Yamaha's first four-cylinder bike. That was, well, actually no, of course, TZ750 was a four-cylinder, but Yamaha's first four-cylinder, four-stroke came out in 78 and ran till about 83. Picked this up about 2 months ago for a guy. It had like a windshield and some horrible bags and some other shit on it, which I took off and replaced a few parts. So what is this? 2 valve per cylinder, 4-cylinder 1100cc, 4 CV carbs, electronic ignition. Got a vacuum advance on it, which makes it quite talky. You know, so Z1000, think Z1000, GS1000, you know, CB900, that kind of thing. But the one thing that sets this apart from those is it has shaft drive. Meant to be about 100 horsepower. It's probably, I don't know, I would think if you dynoed it at this altitude, you'd probably screw 80 out of it. You know, but this was basically Yamaha's muscle bike, you know, their answer to the GS1000 and the Z1000 and all the other stuff that was out at the time. And it's certainly not, it's not a great bike, but it's not a bad bike. You know, typical 19-inch front wheel setup, very marginal brakes on the front. These ones aren't very good, and they could probably do with hoses, pads. I've changed the fluid, but not very good. You know, chrome fender, fairly long forks, and the you know, modern look with the square headlight. The headlight's got a bit of a scrape on it, and the clock's got a few scrapes and bashes as well, but the rest of it hasn't, which is a bit odd. But and then, but like I say, 5-speed. But the big thing that sets it apart is the shaft drive. So I had a guy around the other day who was worked for HRC, and he was a tuning guy back in the day, and he's like, you know what? He said people didn't really do much on these because once you tuned them, you can't change your gearing, which obviously makes sense. And if there's some clever ass out there that says, oh well, you can re-weld a different wheel rim on it and all that sort of stuff, yeah, sure, you could change your gearing if you want to, but for the most part you can't. So I remember a friend of mine had a Z1000 ST back in the day, and he got that tuned, and it was a fun bike to ride, but it was just revving its knackers off all the time. It just wanted to go, you know. It was never felt that relaxed. Anyway, this is pretty much standard apart from the seat. It's had a pretty crappy recover. Looks okay, but like I said, I bought the original grab rail for it, and then I had to wait around eBay till a pair of the headlight reflectors turned up, which were nice. So yeah, square headlight, square gauges, again the old 80 mph special, which was, you know, around 79, 1980. Red lines at 8.5. Fairly low geared. At 4,000 RPM you're probably doing like 60, you know, so and 20,000 miles. I'm guessing that the story with this one, that it was sat in somebody's garage, barn, shed, whatever, somewhere, and then the guy I got it off must have paid not a lot of money for it, but then he ran it through a shop in Denver, Performance Cycle, and they did the carbs on it, and actually I have to say that they made a very good job out of it. They made a decent job out of doing the carbs, and it runs really nice. It idles nice, it picks up nice. So it sits right there at 1,000, and just, you know. So got a fuel gauge on it, which is about pretty much fucking useless. And the reason I like this is the paint. It's got a couple of chips in it, but it's got really nice stock paint. Side covers are nice. I mean, the chrome's nice. There's a few nicks and bangs and marks on it, and one of the pipes was split, and I got it welded, and the welder's made a very good job of it. It needs a bit of a wash, but good. A disc brake on the back, pretty decent back brake. You know, chrome fenders. I've got another, the lens has got an original sticker on it. I've got another lens for it with the rubber round it. So overall, this is a very nice condition bike, and most of the ones you see here in the US are the Midnight Special or the Custom or the 1.1 or whatever, and there are quite a few different incarnations of this. but for me, the standard or the Roadsters, they were the ones that we kind of got in the UK, and I think they're a much nicer bike. And I was quite pleased to pick this up. And the guy didn't make a very good job of advertising it, and he put one picture, but he quoted a price, and it was pretty firm. And I thought, you know what, that's all right if what's underneath is pretty good, and it turned out to be. Riding wise, not bad to ride. You know, bit of understeer on the front wheel, on the front end rather. It's got a pair of Shinko tyres on it, which are decent enough tyres. It pulls pretty good in top gear. Now it's got a vacuum advance on the ignition, and somebody told me that because that vacuum advance, you get that bang when you open the throttle and it advances the ignition, and you get some really good pickup on it. So it does have good top gear acceleration, although like I said, it is fairly low geared. You know, the shocks are in decent shape. The forks are air adjusted, and it looks like it's weeping a little bit out of this one every so often. But I think there's some air in these. They've been pumped up. A couple of dents in the fender. It's a shame, but I've got another fender for it. So when I kind of on the lookout for a decent headlight as well. Looks like the bucket's distorted. Worst thing about riding this is absolutely the seat. The seat is just too wide and too soft, and it's just a shitty seat. It's not a comfortable seat. You could probably sculpt it with foam, but it's almost like the pan's too wide and just pushes your legs out. So in actual fact, what I found the solution is actually not kind of sitting here, but more kind of sitting there with your butt back. So anyway, like I said, it's an XS1100. It's a really nice example of like late 70s, early 80s muscle. I read one review online that compared it, that said it rode like a mini version of a Z13, and having ridden both, and having still got both, I would say that's fair enough. That's a fairly accurate representation in that it does everything a Z13 does. The Z13 just does everything more, so it's a little bit more heavy. It's a little bit not quite as powerful as the Z13. You know, equally, I'll say ineffective, but marginal brakes. So I've ridden this to work a few times. 35 mpg I've got out of this, and that's not riding it hard either. So I'm sure when you ride this hard, it'll drink the gas. But yeah, 35 mpg, and it is set up really nice. It drives really nice. Now, what everybody knows about XS11s, and if you don't, actually two things. Take note. One, the cam chain tensioner is at the front of the engine. What does that mean? That means the engine runs backwards. So it rotates. So if you're standing on the right hand side, looking at the ignition plate, it rotates clockwise instead of counterclockwise. So the engine runs backwards. That's what everybody knows about XS11s, right? Fact number one. Fact number two: second gear goes out. When I bought this bike, I took it out and I ragged it unmercilessly. Unmercifully. Anyway, I didn't show any mercy. In second gear, just going on and off and on and off the throttle. Because if second gear's out in this, the motor's got it. You've got to pull the motor and you've got to do stuff to it. Not saying it can't be fixed, but it's a headache. Somebody told me the other day, and it's quite a smart friend of mine, I won't reveal any names, but he told me that he'd been told that an FJ1200 gearbox goes straight in. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, you know, and that would be great, except because FJ1200s can also be affected by jumping out of second gear. So, but anyway, if you get one of these, doesn't matter which model, which year, just rag it in second gear. If it pops out, can be fits the dogs. You can square them up. You can maybe replace them. You can maybe find good ones, but you're gonna have to do something with it. So that's the big thing. So you know, it's still got the stock exhaust system. Again, buying one of these, second gear. You know, other than that, they say these are the there's a lot of the custom ones around here. Not so much of these, and I think these are original CBX mirrors that I put on it, because I've got some XS1100 mirrors, but they weren't all chrome; they were chrome and black, and I put the original mirrors on it. I put those CBX mirrors on it because I didn't like the look of the original ones, but now I've put these on. These are too big and they're a little bit floppy, so I think I'm going to change them out. Nice pair of horns on the front there for a good old, you know. So yeah. So this is a really nice example of what might be called a classic. It's my child there. of what might be called a classic Japanese muscle bike, and you know, they're not worth a great deal of money. I didn't pay a huge amount of money for this, and I reckon I can make a little bit on it in spring, but you know, I would have thought £3 tops for a really smart one of these GS1000 754 Z1s. They go for kind of more money. XS11s, I just don't think they're that desirable. They don't really have any racing heritage, and no doubt somebody's going to say, oh yes, they raced these, and you know, Davy Mead raced one of these in 1981 or something like that. Well, they probably did, but you know, just because the shaft drive just gives you severe limitations of what you can do. So the custom ones had the 19-inch front wheel and a 60-inch back wheel and a different. I've said it's a 19-inch front, and now saying that, not sure that it is. Yes, it is, but it's got an oversized tyre. So I'm just put a 110/90 on this, and it should be a 100, which just kind of fills out the fender a little bit more. So I had the pipe welded, and I cleaned that pipe off, so I need to clean these pipes. It's got a bit of an oil leak coming out of the cam chain tensioner, and it looks like somebody's gooked the head, the valve cover on this. I think these are bucket and shim, so shim over bucket valves. I think so. A little tool you can get to pop the shims out. I haven't shimmed it, and I'm probably not gonna shim it. I see a little bit of damage on the headlight there, and a couple of the turns. Got a crack in that turn signal. So like I said, I bought this bike principally because of the paint job. Which I like, and I'll hang on to it, and then I'll probably sell it in the spring. So like I say, collectible, not really. Desirable, not hugely. Bad bike, no, it's all right. It just doesn't have the heritage of anything else. Because like really smart GS1000s probably go for a little bit more than this. And it's almost like this kind of like forgotten era that people just don't want this stuff. And my mate Neil had one back in the day, and we rode all around on it. I think if you get a 78, it's got a kickstart. So it's got a kickstarter shaft blanked off. And then also on here, you've also got there's a little, let's call it a sub gearbox, but there's also a little gearbox here that you need to, I actually haven't done it, but I need to change the oil on that. Typical malaise on these as well, cracked carburetor inlets. You can pay about 65-70 bucks for a spurious set off of eBay. And actually I bought a scrap XS11 for $30 the other day, which was nice, especially because look at that head gasket weep with oil coming from the back, especially because it had a Russ Collins 4-into-1, which I got $130 for, so so that was nice. So yeah, I mean, it's like I said, if you want something, I mean, you can run along at 80 mile an hour on this pretty much all day. But what I've noticed is riding a naked bike, and I don't do it that much anymore, it's just the lack of fairing means, you know, you get a lot more wind and you're a lot more kind of hanging on. They're not the stock bars. The stock bars I think are higher and pulled back more, probably a bit more like Goldwing bars. Headlights not bad. Say nice big chrome turn signals on these, and there's not really much else to say really. Say if you want one of these, it's harder to find these standard versions in here in the US. It's easier to find the custom versions, and my neighbour actually had one and just had the carbs done, and he had it for ages, and then he just sold it about 6 months ago, and he got like $3 for it, which I thought was a lot, but it was the midnight special, and it had a period 4-into-1 on it. So the guy bought it from Wyoming. He was obviously a collector. But like I say, I think in spring or May or June, whenever, I'll be asking $2,500 for this, and I think I'd probably get somewhere close. Again, if you can't live without a nice 20,000 mile original XS11, then message me through eBay, because everything is always for sale. Although I did notice that the plug caps look original, so I thought I might put a nice set of plug caps on it. I might do. I probably won't. But you know, oh man, and when I bled the brakes, the stuff that came out of it was just black. It was like crude oil. So back brake's fine, but the front brake is awfully spongy. So anyway, yeah, just a nice timepiece really. Don't see a lot of these. Certainly don't see them in this state. You know, and if you wanted to butcher the shit out of this and make it into a cafe racer, then you know, go ahead, you know, you could do, but again, there's, you know, half the XS11s on Craigslist at the moment have all been, when they say cafe racer, they just like take the back fender off, put some drop handlebars and cut the seat in half, and that's about as far as it goes. And for my money, it takes a little bit more craft to do that. But certainly interesting to note that nearly all the XS650s you see now are rat rods, hot rods, bobbers, cafe racers, lane splitters. So, but I say, so there you go, 1979 XS11, either SG or SH, in very nice condition. And you know, it's not unpleasant bike to ride. In fact, I'm just going to go and blast it up and down the road right now. See you later.